Hi everyone, my name is Jack Harries and I'm really excited to be moderating this panel today. This segment will highlight how youth are engaging in innovative solutions for our oceans and will include powerful yet optimistic remarks from the next generation. The discussion will address positive youth engagement strategies, drivers of innovation, needs from young entrepreneurs to get to the market, the role of mentorship in mobilization, and how we can collectively bridge generations. In my own line of work, I'm a documentary filmmaker and an environmental activist. Through my work as a filmmaker, I've traveled to many of the front lines of climate change, from covering glacial retreat in the Arctic to severe drought in East Africa and rising sea levels in the South Pacific. These trips have left me feeling terrified and overwhelmed about the state of our collective future. However, as an activist, I've also seen young people rise to the challenge. I've seen teenagers strike in their millions and march alongside thousands of ordinary people as they take to the streets to demand change. We are now at an unprecedented moment in history as we begin to rebuild our economies, our strength, and our resilience from the devastating COVID-19 pandemic. There has never been a better time to question everything we know. One thing is certain, we can't afford to go back to normal. But what does an alternative future look like? The oceans are the life force on our planet, and they are in a dire, dire state. Ocean acidification, coral reef bleaching, overfishing, global warming, and plastic pollution are just a few of the issues currently threatening the world's oceans. It's clear that the future of their health lies in the hands of my generation. So today, I'm incredibly excited to be speaking with 4 trailblazing young activists, entrepreneurs, and innovators who are each in their own way on the front lines of the fight to protect the oceans. Over the next 40 minutes, each of our speakers will give a brief presentation of their work for the ocean, after which I will ask some questions to start the discussion on the groundbreaking work of these young, inspiring people. First up is Lilly Platt.
Hi everyone. Okay, if I showed you a picture of the planet, what would you see? You might see a 70% of aquatic land mass covering the planet, or you might see something entirely different. You might see the very foundation of our planet, because I believe each place, each country, each continent has a vital and important role to play to keep this planet alive and running. Because South America is the lungs of the Earth, Asia is the brain of the Earth, and Africa is the heart of the Earth. But the ocean is the soul of the Earth, and that is why it saddens me so much how much we have mistreated and abused it. And this is what inspired me to create my initiative, Lilly's Plastic Pickup. And I would like to tell you about the day it began, the day that changed my life, the day that I just went for a simple walk with my grandpa. My grandpa, or as I sometimes like to call him, my abuelo, he's just like the living tree of knowledge. He has so much wisdom to offer for every question, and he's also just an amazing cook. Ironically, we were nowhere near the ocean when we were walking near my home in the middle of the Netherlands, but we saw plastic and rubbish thrown on the ground everywhere like it was nothing. It was way back in 2015 when I moved to the Netherlands, and I couldn't speak Dutch so well, so we decided to count all of the rubbish that we picked up, all of the rubbish that we found, and then we picked it up. But we counted 91 pieces of plastic in only 10 to 15 minutes of walking. I didn't know whether to be frustrated, angry, upset, or happy that I cleaned everything up. I just didn't know how to feel. That's when my grandpa told me that any rubbish or any discarded item that falls on the ground will somehow make its way into the ocean. It might take a day, a week, a month, or even a whole year, but it will still make its way into the ocean and into the plastic soup. And ever since that day, I swore to myself that I would always pick up every piece of plastic that I found, and I have never stopped since. And you might be wondering, what exactly do I do after my pickups? Well, once I've done my pickups for the week, I sort it all out into groups for recycling, and then I take photos of it and post them on social media. To spread awareness and so people know how much plastic I find every week. And so far, I've picked up over 100,000 pieces of plastic that were just irresponsibly thrown on the ground, but then all responsibly recycled. And to me, every piece of plastic that I pick up could potentially have saved an animal's life. Because you see, plastic gives animals the illusion that it's food, but with unfortunate and disastrous consequences. So once they eat it, they feel full and they never eat again, slowly starving them to death. And this is happening all over the world, from Norway to Curacao to India. And let me tell you about the first sea turtle I ever helped rescue and release with my friend Sea Turtle Conservation Curacao. And she was named Double Sharkbite, and she had ingested discarded fishing lines from the shore. But she was one of the lucky ones. In Norway, I helped with a massive coastline cleanup at the Plastic Whale Conference. And the conference was in memory of a Cooper's whale that had eaten 30 plastic bags. It came looking for help in the Bay of Sotra, but was too sick, so was unfortunately euthanized. My friend and environmentalist Kenneth Bruvik cries at the state of marine pollution there. He is sorry. He's a grandfather too, and says that we cannot give this mess to our children. And he was not the only one that was shedding tears at the cleanup. Marine biologists trying to clean up the meters deep of plastic, and then picking it up and then seeing it shatter into tiny pieces of microplastic, and then realizing that this cleanup is endless. Over in India, my friend Afroz Shah, who has cleaned the beaches of Versova of tons and tons of plastic, and once he did that, all of the turtles and other marine species came back to nest. And he told me a funny story that people call him the father of 108 children because he helped all of these marine creatures come back to the beaches. And even in the deepest reaches of the ocean, even in the deepest reaches of the ocean, over 11,000 meters below sea level, the Mariana Trench has been touched by plastic. In fact, it is so deep that if we tipped Mount Everest upside down, it wouldn't even reach the bottom. When I met Dr. Jane Goodall and told her about my project, she told me to keep on going and to never give up. And that change begins with one small person. And I have never forgot that quote. And what do I exactly want to accomplish with my initiative? Well, my goal is that I want to inspire youth everywhere around the world, so they can feel empowered to share their green heart with the world. For those who don't know, the green heart is the embodiment of a human's bond with nature. And I believe that all children have it. But when you grow older, sometimes we lose this bond as everyday things get in the way. So I'm asking every grown-up in this room to reawaken that bond again and reconnect with their green heart. It is the lawmakers, policymakers, government officials, presidents, royalty, influencers, celebrities, and everyone involved in education. Please make the future of our oceans and our future one of your priorities, because our planet depends on it. And I want the youth to know this, because they are the future leaders of this planet, and I want them to know that no one can stop you, because you can save the world. Because we are today's youth. We are one of the single largest and most powerful generations in history. And all you really need is to have the will to begin. I want everyone here in this room, I want everyone here on the planet to know that the ocean is a living, breathing thing, and not just a credit card with no spending limit or a coat that we wear once and then discard. No, it is a living planet. It keeps us alive. It keeps us fed. So next time you hear the sound of ocean waves, or next time you're at the beach, please remember that the ocean isn't just water. It's a soul, it's a living thing. So please treat it like one. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily, for that really inspiring presentation.
You're welcome.
Love the idea that the ocean is the soul of the planet. I agree with you wholly there.
Thank you.
I feel like if every 12-year-old in the world had your optimism and enthusiasm, we might just be able to solve global climate change. What do you reckon?
Thank you very much. And you also did very good with your presentation, Jack. You did very good. You get 2 thumbs up for the day.
Thank you so much, Lily. That means a lot coming from you. Next, I'm really excited to hand over to Forby Paris in Cameroon. Forby, over to you.
Hello, I'm called Forby Paris, and I'm an environmental science student in Cameroon. I started up my work with environment a couple of years back, but when I was way younger, I had this connection to the environment. And one of the first things I noticed was that we had a lot of trash, plastics in local streams. And I thought to myself that I should do something about it. Young people could do incredible things if they get appropriate information, they get the relevant information to take action. Most of them are working in isolation and do not know what to do about the issues that they are facing in their community. So I started up to work with regional schools to inspire community change by educating young people in secondary schools on what they could do about those issues in their community they are passionate about. So I started up eco groups in community schools by visiting different schools and doing presentations, telling these young people about the issues that they are already passionate about and they had no idea about how to create change. So one of the ways I did this was to launch eco contests where young people could come up with uh, creative drawings about the environmental issues they are passionate about and showcase these drawings to their peers and inspire change. Most young people are suffering from apathy, where working individually is a challenge to most of them. So when young people come together, the energy that they can pull together, it has a far-reaching impact on their community and those around them. So I started up creating groups of young people and working with different schools, working with the government and working with local NGOs on how we could come together, work with schools, young people to see what they could do. Most young people are unaware about how they could create change. And this is what most young people are suffering from because one person on his own doesn't know that another person somewhere else is also passionate about that same thing. And once two of them come together, it sparkles and some level of it creates some level of change. Also, I've worked with a lot of initiatives to combat plastic pollution. Young people are very passionate about issues like plastic pollution because it's something that is very visible to their eyes. We've conducted a lot of cleanups and lack of infrastructure in our community. Waste management infrastructure has been one of the major hindrances in carrying out projects effectively because I remember we had a project where we had huge mobilization of young people within the community. They brought, we were able to store over 6,000 plastic to 12,000 plastic bottles for a period of 6 months because of lack of infrastructure, lack of equipment to recycle plastics. And after the period of 6 months, we got this recycling company in Cameroon to recycle, to come pick them up for recycling. While doing our cleanups and beach cleanups in our community, I realized this other issue, and that was uh, sea turtles, where the numbers were depleting by the day. So I had to educate community members on why they should protect sea turtles. Sea turtles were already protected by law, but most fishermen in rural areas, in coastal areas, knew nothing about this. So we had literacy programs that we held and had to educate fishermen in local coastal communities on why they should protect this endangered species and how their efforts will go a long way to protect the ocean that we all love. The ocean to them is the source of livelihood, is the source of food. So telling them more about how this ocean connects to our lives, how it's the foundation for all life on Earth, was really a boost to their knowledge, because most of them just saw an ocean like an endless dust trash bin where they could dump their waste and just get all the animals they could get from it for food, because most of them were serving sea turtles as food. We were selling it in local markets. So we went on a conservation education project to educate coastal fishermen and to train them on basic skills on how to protect sea turtles. Young people have a very vital role to play in terms of conserving ocean, and this is because they are very enthusiastic, they are very passionate, and they can be drivers of real change and impact in the community. Most of them are very energetic and can go to the field uh, to take action on ground to actually see change being done. This is the particular issue that that captivates me a lot about young people, because they are the energetic force in the community. They can do what a lot of their peers can't do, and we worked with over 1,000 young people in over 15 schools, where we had eco clubs. These young people came together to brainstorm on those issues that their communities were facing, to brainstorm about the issues that they could solve and the issues that they could handle. So we worked with local environmental agencies and educational institutions to make sure that the young people are provided with a platform where they could intervene and create the relevant change in their community. Young people are those that group of the society where they easily would copy the an example from their peers, where we I can remember this cleanup we did, where we had a couple of young people coming together, and we had this cleanup, and the impact of the cleanup was not just the physical impact, but it had an it raised the awareness of the community members on the 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 aspect we were trying to mitigate. We're trying to mitigate plastic pollution, and while they saw us cleaning up the community, they felt they could do the same thing. They felt if we could be doing this, then they could also do the same thing. The best way for young people to be innovative is to learn from each other. That is one of the ways I have seen as an innovative way for young people to be a driving force for the protection of the ocean, because young people have the ability to learn from each other. So providing them with a platform where they could learn from each other is is key to driving innovation for the ocean.
Aubrey, thank you so much for that presentation. That was brilliant. It's amazing to hear the work you're doing, and the fact that you're sort of stepping forward as an inspiring youth leader in your community. I think that's really needed right now. I really love the notion you shared about nature or the oceans not just being something we can enjoy, not just an other, but something that's a necessity for our well-being and our livelihoods as well. Next, I'm really excited to hand over to our third panelist, Callie Wielenturf.
Hello, everyone. Excited to be here celebrating the oceans with everyone tuning in. As a diver and a scientist, I have had the privilege to deeply experience the ocean and marine wildlife. I know intimately what we have to lose, and I feel a burning sense of urgency. It's time for drastic action and system change. My goal has been to apply conservation research to policy discussions and to bring the truth from the field to the international table. After studying leatherback sea turtles on nesting beaches in Latin America and witnessing firsthand their decline over just the last 5 years, primarily due to fisheries bycatch in the Southeast Pacific, I just couldn't turn my back on this issue. The latest estimates indicate that we have only about 10 years until the leatherback is functionally extinct in this region. In a desperate effort to do something, I started the Leatherback Project last year for the conservation of leatherbacks globally through research, community empowerment, and advocacy. Sea turtles are flagship species, so by studying them and the threats facing their survival, we can open the doors to conversations about the biggest threats facing the oceans today. I got on a plane to Ecuador to investigate the bycatch threat further without knowing what I would find or accomplish, but knowing I simply had to try. Conversations with fishermen evolved into collaborations to decrease bycatch. A team of local biologists and early career marine biology and fisheries science students from local universities joined forces to help us further document fisheries interactions. We brought this evidence to the National Fisheries Institutes to discuss the urgency of the bycatch issue. What has emerged is a collaborative bycatch reduction plan for the next several years, involving evaluating the effectiveness of bycatch reduction technology in the artisanal gillnet fishery and hopefully swift implementation of this technology on a countrywide scale. In Ecuador, the rights of nature were historically acknowledged in the Constitution in 2008, with Bolivia to follow suit in 2010. These are the rights of those of nature to exist, persist, and regenerate its vital cycles. After spending time in Ecuador, where this law is an actual reality, and recently having a personal experience in legally defending my own rights, I realized the power of the concept of rights for nature and the urgency with which this mindset needs to be spread globally. I was compelled to establish the campaign, Rights for Nature. We need this new legal framework to not only accomplish the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, but also to find balance as a species on Earth and make peace with nature. This campaign is so important because it addresses the direct way in which society interacts with nature. It addresses how we combat climate change, govern and protect the oceans, approach endangered species conservation, talk about sustainability, plan our cities, and invest our funds. It may prove to be the most effective way to monetize sustainability for corporations, governments, and individuals to make it economically appealing to favor the planet. At Rights for Nature, we have drafted a resolution to recognize the rights of nature and are communicating with government officials regarding the possibility of having it on the table for the 2021 UN General Assembly. Together with Panamanian indigenous leadership and government officials, we are also drafting a law asserting rights for nature for the first time in Panama. Formally acknowledging rights for nature internationally and constitutionally is just the first step to a cascading system change in the governance of our lands and oceans. I've learned thus far that you must never see yourself as too insignificant to make a difference. By sparking passionate conversations about ocean conservation issues across country boundaries, occupations, and generations, we have the opportunity to share knowledge and form diverse partnerships for global change. Engaging the youth is particularly important because people under the age of 30 represent over half of the world's population. Youth bring innovative ideas, passion, and a sense of urgency to the table, and older generations a lot of realism and decade of experience. When both mindsets work together, more effective solutions for this planet and our oceans will certainly emerge. Don't wait to be invited to the table. Go to the table and take a seat. This is your planet and your future, no matter how old you are, and you have a say. The formula for making anything possible, in my opinion, is vision plus passion plus determination. Regardless of age, affiliation, or expertise, find what it is that you feel a fire inside to contribute. All you need is knowledge of the threats facing the oceans today and a refusal to be a passive bystander. Step outside of your comfort zone, be inconvenienced. You are the right person for the job, and the time is now.
Vision plus passion plus determination. I love that. That's a really nice sentiment. Thank you for that, Kelly. I feel like everyone's dream job is to be a conservation biologist. It's up there with being an astronaut. So it's fascinating to hear how you've pursued that path and you're using it to create system change. Finally, last but not least, I would love to introduce our final panelist today, Becky Oni. Over to you.
Thank you. And like Callie and everyone else, I'm so excited to be here at this incredible event celebrating the soul of the Earth. I'm Dylan, and I'm the founder of the Reef Quest Foundation, which is an organization dedicated to marine research and education. I founded Reef Quest in response to environmental degradation that I witnessed as a kid on one of my favorite coral reefs in West Maui, Hawaii. I wanted to do something about this, but I didn't know how to make meaningful impact. After connecting with mentors who led documentation efforts to better understand the real impacts of climate change on these ecosystems, Reef Quest was born. As a kid talking with scientists, I tried to identify what their needs were, how I could support them. And following this, Reef Quest is structured around three main ideas: utilizing the power of citizen science to collect high-resolution data, which can be used to inform targeted social and environmental impact. We achieve scale by empowering everyone to support their local environmental programs in their own environment. This approach is meaningful because there aren't enough scientists to successfully monitor the world's ecosystems at the resolution necessary to make meaningful local insights, to know the real root of the problem. Citizen science efforts democratize research and uniquely integrate people into real programs dedicated to preservation, sustainability, and understanding the natural world. They also produce large volumes of data, so we use innovative technologies to maximize the value and quality of the data collected by our citizen scientists. Data drives our collective understanding of global systems, and it's our greatest tool when understanding the root causes behind degradation in different areas. Reef Quest has developed some novel technologies like our virtual reef, pictured here, which enables citizen science programs on an online platform. Integrating these new technologies with citizen science is the cornerstone for the data that we use to monitor on global scales. High-resolution data is what gives us this superior understanding of the impacts of climate change and environmental misuse, and yields targeted solutions and policy that are evidence-based. And data-driven, evidence-based solutions drive impact, both environmental and personal. For example, back on my favorite reef in West Maui, data revealed a local imbalance in the ecosystem, which prompted the creation of a herbivore fisheries management area. That was a targeted solution in direct response to the local environmental pressures that were harming the ecosystem. These direct actions were only possible because of the high-resolution local research and data collection through these monitoring efforts. It also revealed that the problems facing this reef were predominantly local, and as a result, they were actionable. As a kid, trying to combat global climate change was daunting. It felt like a losing battle. But insights derived from this data revealed that local pressures were actually at fault. And that felt empowering because it was something I could do to make change. A key social impact of citizen science that we've also seen is the influence on people, especially youth and students, who are now a part of a cause. Integrating people in citizen science efforts recruits interest and awareness into problems that are facing all of us as a global community. That personalizes the problem and makes someone care about climate change and ocean sustainability on a deeper level because now they're a part of the solution. That's empowering. This is Reef Quest's core structure. It derives insight and impact from high-resolution data, which is enabled by combining emerging technologies with the power of citizen science. And to do it, we need you, global citizens who are passionate about marine and environmental preservation and sustainability. So join us and join the movement and become a citizen scientist.
Thank you, Dylan, for your presentation. That was really fascinating. Thank you to all four of our panelists for speaking so clearly and being so inspiring about each of these individual topics. I'm gonna come to some questions. I will ask each panelist a question, and then I'll have a few questions which will be up to grabs to any of the panelists. And I think I'll start with Lily. Let's circle back to you. How's it going?
Everything's all right. And how's everything going with you?
Not bad, thank you. I'm feeling more optimistic and inspired after hearing all 4 of those presentations. Lily, tell me a little bit. So you have this really inspiring story of picking up a huge amount of plastic.
Yes.
I feel like one of the things that stops young people engaging in activities like this is it's not considered cool to many young people, and you're one of the young people that are changing that. But how do you think we can make it more attractive? How do you think we can make it seem like a cool thing to do, to pick up plastic, to fight for the environment?
Well, I would say is to show them the good side, what happens if we do pick up plastic, or if we actually do something good for the environment. Like if we pick up three pieces of plastic a day, although considering what's happening now, we should still keep some safety precautions, is to show how much good that does if you only pick at least 1 or 3 pieces of plastic up a day, and then show how much good that does for the planet. And if we have a good planet, then we can sort of show them what a good planet looks like and what that benefits for us, and that if we don't do something about the environment, then that is our future at stake. So I think we should give them some information about environmental problems, and then show them the good side if we do something.
I like that. Yeah, I think the key lies in communication and highlighting the positive solution you can create. And I feel like you're one of the people doing that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Corby, I'm going to come to you next. Corby, growing up, I always felt there was a lack of leadership in the environmental space. I had a few heroes like David Attenborough and Jane Goodall. I could probably name them on one hand. That's changing now with so many amazing youth activists rising to the forefront. But I'd love to know, for you growing up, were there any youth leaders? Which environmental campaigners inspired your work?
Okay, so when I was way younger, I didn't have those kind of people who inspired my work. But when I just started with my passion for the environment, I was inspired by Socha Cantwell in Scotland, and Afro Shaz, and Fongo Eric, who is a local environmental activist in our country. So they really inspired my work a lot because I saw how much work they were doing.
Thank you for sharing that. Callie, I'm going to come to you next with a question. I imagine one of the more difficult parts of the process in your work is approaching local stakeholders, for example, artisanal fishers or community leaders. How do you go about doing this particular part of your work, and why is it important to you?
It's a great question. In conservation work, engaging with local communities is arguably the most important part. If conservation solutions are really going to be truly effective, they have to work for everyone, which means that they need to be determined using input from all stakeholders. Deploying green LED lights on gill nets, for example, to decrease turtle bycatch might work for me and the turtles, but if the fishermen aren't interested in experimenting with this new technology, it could never really be a long-term solution. And leaders of a local community where a research project is about to begin need to give their permission in the same way that a government ministry of the environment needs to provide a permit. Local communities have long histories with their local wildlife and hard-earned knowledge and perspectives regarding how their resources have been used in the past and maybe how they could be better used in the future for future generations. And really learning these histories and perspectives is step number 1. But every country and culture has different protocols. So I usually start by simply asking around to learn who the local leaders are, who the local fishermen leaders are, and learning how to properly solicit an initial meeting. It's always different. Oftentimes it can be an official letter, and sometimes it's as simple as a WhatsApp message to the right person. In conversation, I often start by sharing my passion to combat the issues that I see, being super open and honest about my intentions, and letting the community leaders know how eager I am to hear their opinions and learn from their experiences. And personally, I've universally found local leadership to be very excited and receptive to engage in all kinds of conversations regarding ocean conservation solutions.
Thank you for sharing that. Passion is infectious and a great way to communicate the work that you want to do. Dylan, one of many problems of climate change is it's a really difficult thing to communicate, often because it happens in remote locations. It's not something that people see in their day-to-day lives, particularly if you live in a city. So my question to you is, how can youth be involved in innovations in ocean science or become ocean scientists from their home, from their living room, or even living in a city?
Definitely. It's a great question, and so necessary now that we're living in the age of COVID as well, when we might not even be able to get outside of our living room. It is challenging, but also there are so many technologies that exist nowadays that developing those technologies can almost be overwhelming. Even just finding those technologies can be overwhelming. I think the key transition from my personal experience in this space, but also from what I've seen with fellow activists, was the relationship I developed with my mentors and people who have been in climate science and in ocean preservation for a long time now. They really know what their needs are, and they can really help clarify what technologies can be developed to help address those needs. So it was in communication and in relationships with my mentors where I was really able to distill that and identify what needed to happen. And then beyond that, we live in an incredible era with the internet and with mobile devices and interconnectivity, where we can develop these really unique tools that might not have been able to have existed or have existed as successfully if we didn't live when we did, or in the modern age. And so developing tools like the virtual reef that I mentioned, or even, for example, Reef Quest is developing a new tool that uses AI to analyze photos that people submit from various adventures out in nature to essentially document change over time and hope to see some of the root causes of various environmental challenges in different areas. It's called photo point surveying. And so being able to see where the needs are in communication with mentors, and then look around you in your local environment, see what tools can be developed or what tools already exist to help contribute to some of those documentation efforts. I think it's bringing those two aspects together that really allow people to make change, even from their living room.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing. Okay, I'm going to open up to the whole panel for the next couple of questions, so feel free to take an answer. We're all young here. I think I'm still young. I'm 27, so I'm going to include myself in that young bracket. Jess, you four are all really passionate about creating change, but the reality is that the power currently lies in the hands of the older generation. So one of our biggest challenges is bridging the gap between our generation and older generations. And I would love to know from each of you, or any of you, what experience you've had trying to bridge that gap with older generations, and what the most effective ways are that we can do that.
Yeah,
it's a big one.
Yeah, for me, I think bridging the gap is about sharing information, spreading information with different generations. That for me, if the older generation is able to communicate what their experience was with the environment, what they saw at their time, and tell the younger generation what things are now, they'll be able to comprehend the problems that they are facing now, and they'll be able to take action.
Thank you for your answer there, Phoebe.
Yeah, I think to jump off of that, like in that knowledge sharing, just simply taking that first step to engage and throwing away prejudices and preconceived ideas of what different groups could or should know based on their experiences or age. Like a biologist inexperienced in policy, for example, might view something politically complicated in a frustratingly simple light to a politician, but that clarity might be just what's needed for more direct or targeted action to take place. Or vice versa, like a more experienced director of a government organization can be much more receptive to the ideas of a young person than I might expect. So by assuming you know how someone from another generation might receive you and preemptively avoiding the engagement, you're really sacrificing whatever possibility could take place there.
I definitely agree with that. I agree with that because I think that that both generations have methods of communicating with each other, and both have wisdom to offer about the environment and about environmental problems. So I think that that communicating is definitely the way to connect both generations.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think what's also so special to see with the panelists here today that I've heard from your presentations is also the power of sharing, like we've been mentioning, your passions and through activism. Because I feel like the participatory aspect of activism as well, especially activism driven by passion, really just brings people together as people and crosses those divides of age or whatever else there is. And I think that's really powerful.
Right.
I like that. And I think we've lost Forby for a moment. I wonder whether we should pause there or I can move forward with some questions. I'm going to take that silence as move forward. And then we can always come back and pick up some of the questions if we'll be able to join again.
Yes.
Okay. So hopefully there's young people watching this panel discussion. I would love to know, maybe just in like a one-line answer, what you guys think is the most important message that young people can take away from this discussion.
I think that the most important thing that that the youth can learn from all of the discussions and all of the 4 presentations that everyone has said is because we are this generation, or this is our future, and we can do this, or is that no matter what people say, or no matter if people keep on saying no, is that you can still save the world. So I definitely think that that is a main message that that kids and youth listening to this should always take with them.
Love that. Thank you, Lily.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think just to jump off of that, in the line of saving the world, that we all need to be daring to do more than we ever really thought we could, because that's what the planet and that's what the oceans need from all of us. So be daring to think big and think about system change, and not only come up with the ideas, but try to visualize how those ideas can become a reality, and don't be afraid to act on it.
Definitely. I also think that along the lines of being daring and making those changes, it can be daunting to address these global problems because there are so many systems at play here. And a term that we like to use is think global, act local, because a lot of the times there are things you can do, especially in your local environment, and with a community of people acting locally, we can make really significant global change. So I think that's also important to consider.
I agree with that. If we can activate young people to all take action in their own local communities, then we've got a real shot.
Definitely.
Forby, we lost you for a moment there, but I'll just repeat the question because I'd love to know your if you have any thoughts on it. Where I'm asking the panelists, what's the most important message that young people can take away from this discussion? I think that maybe the internet connection is still not stable. So in that case, I'm going to move on to a third question, and then we can always come back again and get Forby's response. Okay. So a third question for you all. What is one thing that each of us tuning in here today can do for the ocean, even whilst we are in lockdown, in quarantine? What's one action that everyone can go and take in order to protect the oceans?
I think maybe the most important thing that we could all do is to take the time to further educate ourselves regarding the biggest threats facing the oceans today, and what's currently being done to combat those threats, and then maybe what needs to be done. Because when we're armed with the knowledge of the devastation of the ocean, at least for me, it sparks a sense of urgency inside, and I think it could help us all better evaluate our own expertise or our own perspectives or our own skills, and help us understand like what personal contributions we are actually capable of making, because it's different for everyone, right? Even the people on this panel, we are all like specifically passionate about something different in a little bit of a different way. So I think it's just important to really like self-evaluate and decide based on the information regarding the biggest threats facing the oceans, what it is that you're most equipped to contribute.
And just to take that a little bit further, Callie, what's one or two resources you might recommend for someone to learn more about the state of the oceans?
That's a great question. I mean, there's all kinds of information out there, but I think nonprofits oftentimes are great resources if you want to learn about a specific mission or a specific issue that a nonprofit might be dedicated towards fighting. Also, like government organizations, like in the U.S., NOAA has lots of important information and up-to-date information regarding the threats facing the oceans today and some of the political movements being worked on to combat those issues.
Thank you for sharing that. Lily, did you have any thoughts you wanted to share?
I think so, or I would say is to think on what you would like to do once you are still able to defend the oceans and defend the planet, or is to think of ideas for ways that you can still tackle climate change and plastic pollution. So once everything is opened again, or once everything is sort of going back to normal a bit, is to sort of think of a schedule on what to do. So you can start to refuse single-use plastic more. So you can start to always say no to straws, or you could try to support local communities that want to do things for the environment, and to spread all of the knowledge that you have gathered about environmental problems.
Thank you for those suggestions.
Yeah, I think both of those are fantastic. And bridging from that, or continuing off of that, I also think after you've educated yourself, and once you've maybe connected with these mentors, these people in your environment doing this work, I think it's also really important to just look around you, look in your sphere, look in your world, notice new things, be able to maybe spot environmental degradation or pollution, plastic pollution, runoff, maybe impacts to various organisms in your environment, overfishing, the list goes on. Once you notice those things and you see them in your world, in your specific location, in your local sphere, you are also kind of motivated to really make change. It makes it a bit more tangible. I think that's also a great next step.
Agreed with that. I just wanted to throw in one personal resource recommendation. Have any of you guys seen Chasing Coral, the documentary by Jeff Orlovsky? That really opened my eyes. You should check that out, Lily. It uses they attempt to build a time-lapse camera to capture the bleaching of the corals, and it's really opened my eyes to what's happening underneath the oceans. Again, just highlights communication.
I'll definitely check it out.
Amazing. Great. Okay. Those are my three questions. I wonder if any of you guys have anything you'd like to highlight or to say. Otherwise, I think we can begin to wrap up the panel. I'll take that as a no. Let's just see whether we want to get Forby back in to finish here. Forby, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Amazing. Good to see you. We had some connection issues there. You were dropping in and out, but you just missed two questions, and I'd love to throw at least one of them at you to see if you had a response you wanted to share. One of the questions that I was asking the panelists was one piece of advice that you would offer to young people watching this panel discussion. What's one piece of advice you would offer?
The advice I'll give young people is, if you're passionate about something, then you should take action. Don't wait for something else, because many young people are working, they're suffering from apathy, where they are working in isolation and they feel they can't do anything because they are alone. But I strongly feel that young people, once you're passionate about something, you should just go for it and start taking action.
I agree. I feel like although our generation have many overwhelming issues to tackle, we're also lucky in the fact that we have the internet. We're all live streaming right now from different countries across the world, and we're having this discussion. We have social media, and these are really powerful tools to organize and to share ideas. So I feel like we have that on our side, at least. Corby, I'm going to ask you one last question. Perhaps just more generally, what's one thing that people tuning in can do? So, many of us are still stuck in quarantine. What's one thing we can do even during lockdown to help protect the oceans?
I think we should live more sustainably. What we buy from the market, from the supermarkets, matters a lot in whether we want to live, want to protect the ocean or not. We should choose when you go to the supermarket, if you're buying products that are sustainable, products that would be.
Oh, we've just lost Corby there. It was going so well. The challenges of navigating a virtual panel discussion. Alrighty, I think it may take a minute to get Corby back. I just want to thank all four of the panelists for joining this discussion. Personally, I feel a lot more inspired and optimistic about the future of our oceans, knowing that there are inspiring young people out there trying to find solutions. In many ways, it seems unfair that this has been left on the shoulders of our generation. But as we touched on earlier, I think that we have many amazing tools, at our fingertips in order to tackle some of the overwhelming issues that are facing us today. So I feel really optimistic about that. And I just want to thank everyone who's tuned into this discussion. I hope you also are leaving feeling a little bit more inspired and hopeful. And happy World Oceans Day.